In the heart of West Africa, a young military captain has ignited a geopolitical firestorm. At just 34, Ibrahim Traoré seized power in Burkina Faso, challenging not only his nation's status quo but also the entrenched interests of former colonial powers. His actions have reverberated globally, prompting a critical question: is Ibrahim Traoré a threat to the Western world?
Another coup in Burkina Faso. On Friday, residents woke to the sound of gunfire. Soldiers took positions on the capital's main artery, blocking access to the presidential palace, where heavy gunfire could be heard.
On the morning of September 30th, 2022, the streets of Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, erupted in confusion and tension. Military checkpoints appeared overnight. Government buildings were surrounded. The national television station went off air. And then, the announcement. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a 34-year-old artillery officer from the elite Cobra Special Forces unit, had seized power, ousting Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Santiago Damiba, the very man who had staged a coup himself just 8 months earlier. But this wasn't just another military power grab. This was the second coup in less than a year, and it stemmed from a deeper, festering crisis. Damiba had promised to stabilize the country, to end the nightmare of jihadist insurgents that had plagued Burkina Faso since 2015. Instead, under his short tenure, nearly 40% of the country's territory slipped out of government control, falling into hands of Al-Qaeda and ISIS-affiliated militants. Thousands were killed, nearly 2 million people displaced, entire regions rendered ungovernable. Disillusional soldiers on the front lines were left under-equipped, unpaid, and abandoned. Morale plummeted, and amidst that chaos, one voice rose among the ranks: Traore's. Ibrahim Traoré, who once trained in Morocco and served in Mali, was respected among junior officers for being a man of action. Someone who didn't hide behind air-conditioned offices in the capital but fought alongside his men in the trenches. As Damiba appeared to favor diplomacy over decisive battlefield struggles, many within the military began to believe that he had lost touch with reality, and worse, that he was unwilling to sever the ties with France, the former colonial ruler many Burkinabés blamed for their suffering. So, with growing internal frustrations, Traorés and loyalists from the Cobra unit moved. Damiba fled to Togo. No shots were fired in the capital, but the message was clear: Burkina Faso had a new leader. And this time, the promise wasn't just to fight terrorism, it was to reclaim national dignity. But this coup wasn't just a national affair. It would ripple across the entire Sahel region, shaking international interest, especially those of France, the United States, and increasingly, Russia. Most military leaders come to power promising change. Few deliver. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is trying to be the exception. Immediately after seizing power, Traoré rejected the lavish trapping of presidential office. He kept his rank of captain, refused a salary increase, and publicly reversed salary hikes for high government officials. It was a symbolic gesture, but a powerful one. In a region plagued by corrupt elites and hollow leadership, they stood out. But Traoré's ambitions didn't stop there. In 2023, his government nationalized 2 major gold mines, boldly stepping into an industry long dominated by foreign multinationals. Then came one of the most consequential moves yet: the inauguration of a national gold refinery, capable of processing up to 150 tons of gold annually. The goal: to finally retain a larger share of the country's national wealth, most of which, until now, had flowed into foreign hands. Burkina Faso is Africa's 4th largest gold producer, yet for decades, the profits had rarely reached its people. By asserting national control, Traoré signaled that Burkina Faso would no longer be a passive player in its own economy. These moves gained him widespread support among the youth, the working class, and especially among rural citizens who had long felt abandoned by successive regimes. To them, Traoré wasn't just a soldier, he was a symbol of resistance and renewal.
a plot to overthrow the government. Several members of parliament.
In a country fatigued by broken promises, Captain Ibrahim Traoré became a rare figure, a leader people believed in. His humble lifestyle, bold reforms, and anti-colonial stance resonated especially with Burkina Faso's youth, who make up the majority of the population. To them, Traoré wasn't just a president, he was a symbol of resistance, pride, and a hope for a sovereign future. Across the country, many rallies erupted in his support. Many young people even volunteered to fight. Under Traoré's leadership, the Volunteers for the Defense of Homeland swore to nearly 100,000 civilian fighters, trained and armed to defend their communities from jihadist insurgents. It was a controversial strategy, empowering ordinary citizens to bear arms. But in the eyes of many, it was necessary, because for once, they felt like the government was not just watching, it was fighting with them.
Inciting violence against French nationals circulating on social media. It's been quite tense overnight, and we've heard a helicopter flying around the city all night long.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré's rise wasn't just a domestic shakeup, it was a foreign policy earthquake. He expelled French troops from Burkina Faso, ending years of military cooperations. But this wasn't just strategy, it was symbolism.
Moi je pleure le peuple français. Mais quand même, il est bien pour l'Afrique.
Traoré publicly accused French President Emmanuel Macron of insulting all Africans and urged other African nations to sever military ties with France altogether. To many Burkinabés, France's military presence was nothing more than a modern form of colonial control, an occupying force that failed to deliver security while extracting influence. Traoré's defense struck a deep chord. Thousands took to the streets, waving Russian flags, demanding France's exit and praising Traoré for finally standing up to a former master. This wasn't just geopolitics, this was liberation theater. And for the first time in decades, the script was being rewritten by Africans themselves. With France out, Captain Ibrahim Traoré looked east. His message was clear. Burkina Faso's future wouldn't be dictated by its colonial past. He declared that Russia suits us better, a blunt rejection to France and a pivot that shocked many in the West. Soon, Russian military instructors arrived in the country. Equipment followed. Notably, Traoré attended Russia's Victory Day celebration in Moscow, an unmistakable signal of allegiance. In a region where alliances are currency, this was a major geopolitical shift. Critics warned of swapping one form of dependence for another, but supporters saw it differently. A strategic partnership, not servitude. Russia, unlike France, didn't preach democracy while propping up weak regimes. It offered weapons, training, and respect on African terms. For Traoré, this wasn't about ideology, it was about sovereignty. And if siding with Russia meant getting the tools to defend Burkina Faso's soil, then so be it. For all the bold reforms and fiery speeches, Captain Ibrahim Traoré is still fighting an uphill battle. The insurgency he vowed to crash continues to haunt Burkina Faso. In just one chilling incident near the Niger border, over 100 soldiers were killed. Entire regions remain lawless, with nearly 60% of the countries under rebel control and 2 million people displaced from their homes. While many admire his defiance and vision, critics are growing louder. The question whether popular support alone can overcome such entrenched instability. Some argue that Traoré's alliance with Russia could further isolate Burkina Faso from critical Western aid and humanitarian support. Others say his civilian militaries, though brave, lack the training and consideration to win a war against experienced insurgents. And beneath the surface lies a deeper truth. Charisma cannot replace strategy. As Traoré battles militants, colonial ghosts, and geopolitical pressures, the real question emerges. Can he transform the populist passion into lasting peace? Or will his revolution become another tragic chapter in a country too long at war with itself. To the west, Captain Ibrahim Traoré is an unpredictable variance in a region once tightly held in the grip of traditional alliance. His explosion of France forces, refusal to toe their diplomatic line, and growing ties with Russia have triggered alarm bells in western capitals. Burkina Faso sits in the heart of Sahel, a tragic buffer against jihadist expansion and migration flows, and now it's slipping out of West orbit. In think tanks and military briefings, Traore is painted two ways: as either a destabilization populist whose nationalism could ignite further unrest, or as a bold reformer reshaping Africa's post-colonial future. His defiance forces uncomfortable questions, not just about Burkina Faso, but about the West's legacy in Africa and whether old models of controls are crumbling. And the truth? It's complicated. To some, he's a threat, a young military ruler who could spark copycat coups. To others, he is the start of something new, a symbol of African reclaiming its voice, its resources, and its future. One thing is certain: Traore has disrupted the status quo, and the world is watching closely. Ibrahim Traoré embodies a broader movement across Africa, a desire to break free from colonial legacies and chart an independent path. Whether his leadership will usher in lasting change or further turmoil remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: the world is watching and the stakes are high. If you found this analysis insightful, consider subscribing for more deep dives into global political shifts. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Is Ibrahim Traoré a threat to the Western world or a beacon of African hope?